Hey guys, welcome to my workshop. Hey, farmhouse stuff has really become really popular, and something that kind of goes with the farmhouse thing is this really industrial looking kind of decor. So in this episode of Being a Craftsman DIY, we're going to be making a shelf using pipes and some wood, so stick around. Alright, so for this project you're going to need the following items. You're going to get 4 1-inch clamps. You want to get 4 1-inch pipe nipples that are 10-inch long. Then you're going to want to get 4 1-inch caps. And lastly, you want to get 4 of these 1-inch wall flange. They're actually called floor flanges when you're looking at them in the store. And you can find all of these in the plumbing section at your local hardware store. You will also need a piece of 2x10, roughly 4 feet. Unfortunately, you can't buy them in 4-foot lengths, so I bought the smallest I can, which was 8 foot. So as I just said, the board you're going to buy is going to be a little longer than you really need to. And the reason why I say that is because we're going to be making 2 shelves 2 foot long. You actually could make these longer. You could go 3 foot, or if you wanted to go 4 foot and use up your whole entire board, that is perfectly awesome and fine, because the pipes that you're going to use and the way you're going to mount it to the wall will work either way. So let's get started. So the first thing we want to do is just start by taking out every piece out of these packages. And one thing to kind of think about and remember, when they make these things in the factory, there's a lot of machine oils that get dispersed on all of this stuff. So you could actually, so I would actually recommend wearing gloves. I don't care, because obviously you could tell I've got my hands dirty from something else, so I don't really mind too much. Okay, once we got them all out, we'll just take our clamps and set them to the side for now. They will come in handy later. Next, you're going to want to use some glue of some sort. Just some Gorilla Glue would work fine. Wood glue might even work. All we're going to do is use this to just try to keep these from vibrating off. You could go to the extent, put some Teflon tape on there with some pipe dope. But you really don't need to. It's not holding any water or anything of that nature. But what we're going to come up with is something just like this. You're going to take a cap, get it on the end of one of these pipes, and then also a flange on the other end of the pipe. But we're going to put a little bit of glue on each joint before we put these on. And one thing to note, you could definitely put these together and put them really tight using a pipe wrench, probably a couple of those. The only thing about using the pipe wrenches is that you are going to mar up the steel, and I don't want to do that. So I'm going to just go with my grip and the glue and go as tight as I can by hand. And the glue is just going to help keep things together, more or less vibrating out. Now with all my pipes together, I'm going to head and just kind of rub them off. I'm trying to get most of the cutting oils that they use at the factory off, because our paint will not adhere to this. So now when it comes to painting these 4 pieces of pipe, I wanted to go ahead and do it with black spray paint. And I highly recommend using the Valspar High Gloss Lacquer. This is black, it's high gloss, it's going to look really good. And this lacquer just kind of, I've used it before, and it really just grabs a hold of every little nook and cranny, especially on the threads, and it just gives it a really nice finish. And while I'm painting the pipes, I'm also going to go ahead and paint the 4 clamps. Now while the paint's drying on the pipes and the clamps, go ahead and prep this board for the staining, because we're going to end up staining this with a dark walnut stain. You could stain it any color you want, but my wife likes the dark walnut look, so that's what I'm going with. But like I said in the beginning of this video, I'm going to go with 2 foot long shelves. So I've already kind of looked over this board and realized the end of this has a nasty crack on it, and there's also a lot of knots in that side. So I'm going to start at this end. Still have some issues over here at the end, but all in all, we're going to cut it down just a little bit because I want it to be 9 inches. And unfortunately, when they make a 10-inch board, it ends up being 9 1/4. It's kind of a rip-off. But anyways, we're going to go ahead. I'm going to measure 2 feet. I'm going to measure actually 25 inches instead of 24, because I'm going to cut 1 inch off the end just to get rid of that factory cut edge. So at 25, and then we're going to cut it at another basically 51. And we're going to go ahead, cut them on the miter saw. Okay, we got these cut. We're going to want to take this rough edge and just give it a light sanding with some sandpaper, and just to kind of chamfer the edges a little bit. You could also chamfer using a little hand plane, such as this one here, and just give it a nice little round over. Makes it a little easier to the touch. So to try to maintain the look of industrial and rough, we don't want to really sand this too smooth. The only reason why we're doing what I'm doing right now is just to make it easier to handle. But the faces of the boards, I'm just leaving them rough like they were from the hardware store. The next step is to determine which ones you want to be the top and the front, and I'm going to just maintain a look like that. And then what we're going to do is actually use some pre-staining sealer. And the reason for that is because you want to condition the wood so that your stain doesn't appear blotchy when you put it on the board. So we're going to apply this pre-stain conditioner and let it set overnight. When you apply this pre-stain conditioner, you want to apply it, let it set for about 5 to 10 minutes, and then wipe off any excess that you have. And once you've done that, you want to let it set for at least a couple hours before you would apply your stain. Okay, so everything's dried and everything's turned out really good. Went ahead and mounted one of these on the wall just to kind of play it out, see how things went. And all I really have done is centered it on the wall. I determined the height with my wife, we went over that. And then to mount these pipes to the wall using these pipe flanges, I used 4 drywall screws. So my wall is actually made out of concrete board, which is very strong, and it's also very thick. My board on this wall is actually about 1 inch thick. So I went straight into the wall with drywall screws. I would highly recommend, if you're doing this on a newer home that has mainly just drywall, to use drywall anchors, because you're going to want to make sure you have a really good bite. But I'm going to go ahead, attach and work on the second one. And once the pipes are attached to the wall, put the board on the top, centered that, and then use the 1-inch pipe clamps and attach them to the base of the board to give it the strength that it needed to keep it from sliding back and forth. So everything turned out fantastic for these shelves. My wife is super pleased. I'm super pleased. They turned out very sturdy, and they are being used wonderfully right now. So if you enjoyed this video and you enjoyed this episode, please let me know in the comments below. Also, if this inspired you to do this thing, let me know as well. I'd love to know if you end up doing these projects. They're awesome. So I will look forward to seeing you on the next episode of B&O Craftsman DIY.